Imagine waking up a Tuesday morning, checking your phone, and realizing you just won $50 million. $50 million. You scream, you cry, you call your mom. You probably call people you haven't spoken to in 6 years. Your hands are shaking, your heart is racing, and in that moment, you genuinely believe, with every single cell in your body, that your life just changed forever. And it did change, just not in the way you think. Here's something that will genuinely mess with your head. Studies show that a massive percentage of lottery winners end up broke, bankrupt, or in a worse financial situation within just 3 to 5 years of winning. Some are deeper in debt than they were before they won. Some lose their homes, some lose their families, some lose everything. And here's the part that should really stop you in your tracks. These people didn't lose the money because they were stupid. They didn't lose it because they were careless. They lost it because of something much deeper, something that lives inside every single one of us. They lost it because of how the human brain is wired to think about money. And once you understand that, once you truly understand the psychological force that destroys lottery winners, you're going to start seeing it everywhere. In your own spending, in the people around you, in the financial decisions that seem perfectly logical in the moment, but quietly drain your wealth over time. So, let's talk about it. Let's talk about why winning the lottery is one of the most financially dangerous things that can happen to a person, and what it can teach the rest of us about building real, lasting wealth. Let's start with what most people believe about money. Most people, and honestly, this includes highly educated people, people with good jobs, people who are smart in almost every other area of life, most people believe that having more money automatically solves money problems. It sounds obvious when you say it out loud. Of course more money helps. Of course having $50 million is better than having $500 in your checking account. That logic makes complete sense on the surface. But here's the trap hiding inside that belief. The assumption is that the problem is always the amount of money, that if you just had more income, more savings, more zeros in your bank account, everything would finally click into place. The stress would disappear, the bad decisions would stop, the financial chaos would finally calm down. And lottery winners are the ultimate test case for that belief. They don't get a small raise, they don't get a bonus, they get a complete overnight transformation of their financial reality. One day they have nothing, the next day they have more money than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. If the just need more money belief were true, lottery winners should be the happiest, most financially stable people on the planet. But they're not. And that tells us something incredibly important. It tells us that the problem was never the amount of money. The problem was always the relationship with money. Okay, so let's break this down step by step because this is where it gets really interesting. When a person wins the lottery, the very first thing that happens isn't financial, it's psychological. Their brain gets completely flooded with a feeling that psychologists call sudden wealth syndrome. And no, that's not just a fancy term, it's a real documented psychological response to receiving an amount of money that your brain has absolutely no framework to process. Think about it this way. Your brain is incredibly good at pattern recognition. Over your entire life, it has built a mental model of what money means, what $1 feels like, what $100 feels like, maybe what $10,000 feels like if you've ever saved that much. Your brain has a deeply ingrained sense of money's size and weight. Now, suddenly hand that same brain $50 million. In one afternoon. Your brain has no pattern for that, no reference point, no emotional framework to understand what that number actually means in real life. And when the human brain encounters something it can't process, something too big, too fast, too unfamiliar, it defaults to the only financial behavior it actually knows, the behavior it learned growing up, the financial mindset of someone who never had enough, because that's exactly who they were for most of their life. That mindset doesn't disappear the moment your bank balance changes. It follows you.
It shapes every decision you make. And when you combine a survival mindset with an incomprehensible amount of money, the results are almost always catastrophic. Here's how it plays out in real life. The moment lottery winners receive their money, the requests start. Family members they haven't heard from in years suddenly appear, old friends show up with business ideas, strangers write letters. And because most lottery winners grew up without much, they feel an enormous psychological pressure to be generous, to share, to prove they haven't changed, to show the people they love that this windfall is going to lift everyone up.
So they start giving. They buy their mom a house. They pay off their brother's car. They cover a cousin's debt. They fund a friend's restaurant idea. Every single one of these feels like the right thing to do. Every single one feels like love expressed through money. But here's what's actually happening financially. They're not just spending money, they're draining capital. Capital that, if invested properly, would generate income forever. Every dollar given away is a dollar that can never work for them again. And that's just a family problem. Then come the purchases. The house. Usually multiple houses, because why not? You're a millionaire now. The cars, the vacations, the wardrobe, the jewelry, the boat, the private dinners, the upgrades on everything. Every single purchase feels completely justified because compared to $50 million, everything seems cheap. And this is where one of the most dangerous psychological effects kicks in, something called mental accounting. Mental accounting is the way our brains categorize money differently depending on where it came from or how we think about it. Here's a simple example. If you find a $20 bill on the street, you're probably more likely to spend it on something fun, dinner, drinks, something you wouldn't normally buy. But if you earned that same $20 by working an extra hour, you're far more likely to be careful with it. Same $20, completely different emotional weight. Now, scale that up to $50 million that arrived through pure luck, overnight with zero effort or sacrifice. Your brain does not attach the same emotional weight to that money as it would to money you earned slowly over years of work. It feels unreal. It feels infinite. It feels like it came from somewhere outside of normal financial reality, because for your entire life, it did. And when money feels infinite, the concept of running out feels impossible. So lottery winners spend without the psychological breaks that normal financial pressure creates in most people. They don't feel the friction. They don't feel the loss. Every swipe, every wire transfer, every gift feels like drawing water from an ocean. Surely there's plenty more where that came from. Except there isn't, because math doesn't care about feelings. Let's run the actual numbers, because this is where things get brutally real. Say someone wins $50 million. After federal and state taxes, and yes, lottery winnings are taxed heavily in America, a $50 million jackpot might leave you with somewhere between $25 and $30 million in take-home cash, depending on your state and whether you take the lump sum. So let's say $27 million, still an almost incomprehensible amount of money. Now let's say in the first year you buy a $3 million home. That's reasonable, right? You're a millionaire now. Then a vacation home for $1.5 million. 2 luxury cars, maybe $300,000 total. Generous gifts to family, let's call it $2 million. A few investments in a friend's business that doesn't pan out, another $500,000. General lifestyle inflation, vacations, clothes, restaurants, easily $500,000 in a year when you're living large. You just spent almost $8 million in 12 months. And here's the part people forget. That house you bought, it costs money every single month. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities on a $3 million home can easily run $5,000 to $10,000 a month. Both houses combined, you might be spending $15,000 a month just to own properties that feel like they're already paid for. Add the lifestyle, add the ongoing generosity, add taxes on any investment income. Most lottery winners without any professional financial structure burn through their winnings within a decade, many within 5 years, some within 2. Now here's the deeper idea, the one that goes way beyond lottery winners and applies to every single person watching this. The lottery story isn't really about lottery winners. It's about what happens when your financial behavior doesn't match your financial situation. There's a concept in wealth psychology called your financial setpoint. Think of it like a financial thermostat inside your brain.
Over the course of your life, based on how you grew up, what you observed about money, what you experienced, what you were taught, your brain calibrates itself to a certain level of financial comfort. And just like a thermostat, when things deviate too far from that set point in either direction, your brain works to bring things back to the level it considers normal. This is why people who grow up in poverty often unconsciously self-sabotage when they start earning more, not because they want to fail, but because wealth feels foreign, uncomfortable, wrong in a way they can't quite explain. And the brain, trying to protect you from discomfort, nudges you back towards familiar financial territory. And this works in reverse, too. People who grew up wealthy but fall on hard times often find ways, sometimes seemingly irrational ways, to restore their financial status. The expensive habits, the unwillingness to downgrade, the insistence on maintaining appearances, it's all the thermostat trying to get back to its set point. Lottery winners are the extreme version of this phenomenon. Their set point is calibrated for a very different financial reality than the one they suddenly find themselves in. And without serious, deliberate intervention, usually in the form of financial education and psychological work, the thermostat wins every single time. The money disappears. Life returns to the set point. And this is the insight that most personal finance content completely ignores. We spend so much time talking about budgets and investment strategies and savings rates. All of that is important, but none of it matters if your financial set point is calibrated for scarcity. Because a scarcity mindset doesn't just affect lottery winners. It affects the person who gets raise and immediately inflates their lifestyle to match. It affects the person who pays off their credit card and then slowly maxes it out again without even realizing it. It affects the person who builds up a $5,000 emergency fund and then finds a reason to spend it. The thermostat pulls them back every single time.
There's another psychological layer here that's worth understanding. It's called the Diderot effect. Denis Diderot was an 18th century French philosopher who received a large sum of money as a gift and used it to buy a beautiful new robe. And then, looking at that robe, he felt like everything else in his home looked drab and mismatched by comparison. So he bought new furniture, then new art, then new drapes. One purchase triggered a cascade of purchases, each one justified by the need to maintain consistency with the thing before it. Lottery winners live the Diderot effect at scale. The mansion requires mansion-level furniture. The furniture requires mansion-level hosting. The hosting requires a certain kind of social circle. That social circle has certain expectations. Those expectations cost money, and the cascade never stops until the money does. This isn't stupidity. This is psychology. This is the predictable, well-documented behavior of a human brain that was never given the tools to think about wealth differently. Here's another piece of this puzzle that rarely gets discussed. Sudden wealth is also socially isolating in a way that makes people incredibly vulnerable to bad financial decisions. When you win $50 million, your entire social reality shifts overnight. The people who knew you before now relate to you differently, some with admiration, some with resentment, some with expectation. And you start attracting an entirely new group of people who see you primarily as a financial resource. This isolation creates a desperate need for connection and validation. And when someone feels isolated and desperate for connection, they are remarkably easy to exploit. Financial advisors who aren't acting in their best interest, business partners with bad ideas but great pitches, romantic interests who appear the moment the check clears, extended family members with a list of needs that grows every time it gets answered. Most lottery winners have no framework for navigating this social landscape because they were never taught one. They end up making financial decisions not based on logic or strategy, but based on loneliness, guilt, fear of judgment, and the desperate desire to make other people happy. And every one of those decisions costs them. So, what does all of this mean for you, someone who probably isn't going to win the lottery, but who absolutely wants to build real wealth over time? It means that the most important financial work you can do has nothing to do with spreadsheets. It means that before you optimize your portfolio, before you figure out your asset allocation, before you automate your savings, you need to look honestly at your financial set point, at the beliefs about money that were installed in you before you even had a choice, at the emotional patterns that show up every time your bank account reaches a certain level or drops below a certain level. Because here's the truth that wealthy people understand and most people never figure out. Wealth is not primarily a financial skill. It is primarily a psychological skill that has financial consequences. The mechanics of building wealth are actually not that complicated. Spend less than you earn, invest the difference consistently over a long period of time. Avoid catastrophic financial mistakes, be patient. That's basically it. The math is simple, but the psychology? The psychology is incredibly hard. Because every time you try to do the right thing financially, you are fighting against habits, emotions, and beliefs that were hardwired into your brain over decades. The lottery winner who buys their mom a house isn't making a financial decision, they're making a psychological one. They're trying to rewrite an old story about who they are and where they come from. The person who gets a raise and immediately upgrades their car isn't making a financial decision. They're responding to a deep psychological need to feel like their success is visible, to feel like they've arrived, to feel like they deserve to enjoy the thing they worked for. These aren't bad people making dumb choices. These are human beings responding to deeply human psychological forces that nobody ever taught them to recognize. So here's the practical takeaway. Start paying attention to your financial set point. Notice the patterns. Notice what happens when your savings account grows past a certain point. Do you find a reason to spend it? Notice what happens when you get a raise. Does your lifestyle instantly expand to absorb it? Notice how you respond to unexpected money, a tax refund, a bonus, a birthday check. Does it disappear faster than money you earned through regular work? These are your financial thermostat signals. They're telling you exactly where your set point is, and once you can see it clearly, you can start the work of adjusting it. That work looks like financial education, not just the technical kind, but the psychological kind. It looks like reading about money psychology. It looks like surrounding yourself with people who think about wealth differently. It looks like making small, consistent financial decisions that challenge your old programming and gradually build a new relationship with money. It also looks like slowing down before you spend, creating space between the impulse and the action. Asking yourself honestly, is this a financial decision or a psychological one? Am I buying this because it moves me towards my goals or because it satisfies an emotional need that I should probably deal with in a different way? That pause, that tiny moment of awareness between the emotion and the action is worth more than any budget strategy ever created. And one more concrete thing. If you ever do come into a significant amount of money, an inheritance, a bonus, a business exit, anything, the single best thing you can do before spending a single dollar is wait. Just wait. 90 days. Don't tell everyone, don't make promises, don't buy anything, don't make any major decisions. Give your brain time to calibrate, give your emotions time to settle. And then, with a clear head, work with a fiduciary financial advisor, someone who is legally required to act in your interest, to create a plan that makes that money last. Because the greatest financial crime isn't losing money to bad investments, it's having a life-changing amount of money pass through your hands and having nothing to show for it because you never understood the psychology behind your own decisions. Here's the thought I want to leave you with. The lottery winner who goes broke and the regular person living paycheck to paycheck are playing out the exact same psychological story, just at different dollar amounts. Both of them believe on some level that their financial situation is about the money, that if the number just changed, went up, went down, started fresh, things would be different. But the number was never the problem. The story they tell themselves about what money means, what they deserve, and what wealth actually looks like, that's the problem. And the beautiful thing about a story is that it can be rewritten, slowly, imperfectly, one decision at a time. The people who build real, lasting wealth, not the lottery jackpot kind, but the quiet, compounding, generational kind, they figured out how to rewrite that story.
They stopped letting old beliefs of scarcity drive financial decisions made in a world of real opportunity. They stopped confusing how wealth looks with how wealth works. And they stopped waiting for a lucky number to save them from doing the actual work. Because the real jackpot was never the $50 million. The real jackpot is learning to think about money in a way that makes $50 million possible to keep. And that jackpot, you don't need a lottery ticket for that one.